All right, let's get into banking and mining. So we've got here the bank method, and basically it's a private void called bank, and the parameters it takes is the bank objects, which is an integer array, and the banker ID. And these bank objects, I don't know what they are. Actually, I believe they are. Let me find something where. I'm not gonna find it. Never mind. Where are we? That's a loop, so we're probably below this. Bank. There we go. There we go. So each place, so Remington, East Barrack, West Barrack, has its bank objects, which is the bank booths, and this gets passed into the bank method. And yeah, this is pretty interesting. This is never gonna be executed, so yeah. If a random number between 1 and 3, because this is not inclusive, so the 4 does not get included, is less than 4, so if a number between 1 and 3 is less than 4, which is always, we run this, and if it's not, which is impossible, then we run this part here, so I don't think this is gonna get run anytime soon. We get the nearest booth. So as I said, these bank objects are the bank booths. So we create a new RS object, and that's going to be the nearest bank booth. You know all this stuff from my tutorials. And if the booth is not null and the bank is not open, we open it quickly, and we sleep for a random amount of time. And if the bank is open, we deposit everything except the pickaxes, and we close the bank. Closing the bank is not necessary. You don't have to close the bank. That's just not useful to do. Just wastes time. If you click the minimap, it will close the bank automatically, and you can click the minimap from inside the bank. So if you're walking using the minimap, you don't have to close the bank. And here we do the same thing, but using a banker instead of the bank booth. So that's some nice anti-ban. Sometimes we will use the bank booth, other times we'll use the banker. Only that in this case we will always use the bank booth. And we've got another banking method here which is never used. So let me delete that. That was pretty straightforward there. Basically it was the same thing, but only without these guys here. So yeah, there were a few errors. If we use that method, so yeah, it was the same thing. The in-area method basically just returns true if the current area, which is this one, contains my player. Get location. So if the area contains the location of my player, means that it contains our player. So we can return true because we're inside the area. Walk path reverse is the walking method for the reversed path. So basically what we do here is we create a path, which is the a randomized path of these tiles, which is a path. And I know I'm going too quickly now, sorry about that. Basically we pass this method the path we're walking, and we assign to this variable here a slightly randomized version of that path. So we randomize the x and y coordinates slightly, and then we do a method called reverse path inside the walking class, which reverses the path. And I don't suggest this walking way now because it's going to get deleted soon, I guess. And if run enabled is not true, so there is a walking class which has methods for walking, such as isRun enabled. And if it's not, basically this exclamation mark means not. So if this is not true, and the energy is over 19 to 43, we set run to true. And sometimes every random time we will turn to the next tile we're facing. So we will turn the camera to that destination tile. and we get the destination by doing walking.getDestination. So the getDestination method is inside the walking class. And if the destination is not null, we can turn to tile over to the destination tile. So yeah. And if the distance to the destination is less than 3 to 6, then we can walk path mm. And what this means is basically that if the distance to our current destination, so this is the flag in the minimap, is less than 3 to 6, means that we can click the next tile in the minimap, and we will be able to walk continuously and without any flaws in our walking by clicking the minimap once we are near enough to the destination tile. So as soon as we click the minimap, we will be too far away from the destination to click the next tile, so we'll wait until we are again near, and we will repeat this procedure. So yeah, that's walking reverse, and this is walking normally. So instead of reverse, we just don't make reverse, and we use the normal path, and the rest is exactly the same. And this is mouse movements method. We're going to go through that as well, and that's going to be pretty much it, I believe. No, we're still mining to do. So we create a random integer between 1 and 15, and if it's less than 7 and it equal to 1, well, that check is pretty useless. Yeah, that check is just so bad. I'm gonna delete it. Yeah, that was just completely random, random thing to do. If it's less than 7 and it equals 1, yeah. Well, we can just check for if it equals 1, and that's it. If x equals 1, we move the mouse slightly. This is a method inside the mouse class which moves the mouse about a fixed point just a bit. And if it's equal to 2, we move the mouse over a much larger area. And if it's equal to 3, we move it slightly. If it's equal to 4, we will randomize 1. Again, this is the same mistake as before. This check is not useful because this number is not inclusive. So we're creating a random number between 1 and 1, and this is always going to be equal to 1. So yeah, that check is not too useful. Let's change it to 3 there, so that this thing happens every now and again. And then we check for if a random number between 1 and 45 is equal to 1, and if it is, we turn short break to true, and we move the mouse off the screen, and we take a break for like 9 and 30 seconds. That's a relatively short break. And if the random number is 7, we do the same thing. And I'm just going to show you a small trick here because I don't like what I'm seeing all too much. If we delete that, and we do that, it's exactly the same thing. So if a random number between 1 and 45 is equal to 1, or a random number between 1 and 45 is equal to 7, we do this, and that's exactly the same thing as what we did before. And here, if the number is 2, so it's not 1, we move the mouse off the screen, and we sleep for just 1 or 2 seconds, and that's it. And then if x is equal to 5, we move the mouse slightly. If x is equal to 6, we put the status looking away, and we look away, which means that we move the mouse off the screen, and we move the mouse slightly if the number here is 2. And yeah, that's it. The anti-ban, all the mouse movements are already covered, and this is the state, profit, draw mouse. So we're pretty much done here. We're just going over to... Have I done this? I don't think I have. Nope. Mine rocks. Mining rocks is pretty useful in mining scripts, as you might suppose. So basically, I'm just going to go through the East Barrack location, and I'm just going to explain the differences between other regions. Here we see that if we're in East Barrack, and we don't have mine secondary selected, so we're not mining 2 rocks, we're just mining 1. And if we mine tin, we basically get a tin rock, which is the nearest tin rock, as an RS object. And if the tin object is not null and my player's animation is equal to -1, it means that we're not doing anything and there's a rock available, so we can't mine it. And current rock, remember the RS model we used in the paint? Well, this is the way you get the model in the triangles. You basically get the RS object and you use the get model method, and that returns the 3D model of the rock. And we turn tin highlight to true, which basically means that we are now starting to highlight the tin rock we're mining. So yeah. And if a random number between 1 and 6 equal to 1, we turn to that tin object, and turn to method just turns the camera towards that object. And as you can see here, the private void turn to only has one line, which is a camera dot turn to object, and return to that object. So yeah. Getting back to mining, the same thing happens with copper. So we get the copper ore, and if the copper rock is there and we're not mining, we mine, and we get the model and that good jazz. And the same thing happens here in West Barrock. And in Remington, the same thing happens. Okay, so mouse within. This is a Boolean method. Mouse within basically is going to check for whether your mouse is within a certain area or a certain region. So we got a point P, which is the location of your mouse, max distance in the X, max distance in the Y coordinate, and this is the way to do it. We get the location of the mouse and we assign it to the point. And what's this doing? Okay, I see now. Sorry about that. So basically we get the mouse coordinates, mouse X and mouse Y, and this is the current location of the mouse, get X and get Y. And we've got these two X and Y coordinates of this point, which I don't know what that point is yet. Let me find it later on. Okay. Let's omit this for the moment. They are underlined in yellow, so this means they're not getting used anywhere in the script. And I don't think this is well coded here. I don't think that is the best idea for all to do that. And the same thing happens here, so yeah. Basically, what this does is return true if our mouse is inside a certain location. But I don't think this is the best way to do it. I'll explain the way to do that correctly in one of my tutorials soon. Here, this is the close bank method. Again, there's no need to close your bank. And that's it. This is the anti-ban, which we went through already, the get version, and the unfinished. And this is the message received. And basically here we get the message and we assign it to a string. And again, if the message contains mine some clay, you increase the count of clay mined, and that repeats for every ore. And then we get to the GUI, but again, the GUI just has some standard information, and it's pretty simple to see the GUI in action, and then following my tutorial on making a GUI, you should be able to replicate that, no problem. And finally, we've got the public class retrieve prices, and what this class does is get the prices of all the ores in the via the Grand Exchange. And the way it does it, it's just this Grand Exchange dot lookup. It gets the ID of the ore to lookup, and then you call the get market price on that lookup value. And this runnable stuff, just don't worry about that yet. There's no time in this tutorial, so I will create a tutorial on this shortly. I'll see you guys soon.